Chelsea are on top of the world. The reigning European champions travel to the United Arab Emirates as the favorites to lift the Club World Cup and are still very much alive in the Champions League and FA Cup and look for a top four finish in the Premier League. That's not to say, though, everything has come up roses for Thomas Tuchel in his first full season in charge. And I'm joined by Benge, our very own Benge, and a returning pal of ours, Alison, to take stock of the Blues. Qué Golazo begins right now. Welcome, everybody, to Qué Golazo. Thank you so much for being part of the family. Ali Bender, how are you?
Hey, I'm great, thanks. Yeah, really, really good. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm so happy that you're here. And, of course, joining us, our very own Benge. How are you, Jimbo?
I'm fantastic. I'm really good because literally as we speak right now, I've just got my email. I was really late, but my email that I'll be at Villa Park tomorrow night.
Oh, baby.
Exactly.
Yes, Benge. I want all the videos. I want all the footage. I want you to be hugging Emiliano Buendia by the end of the day. Yes, Benge. I love it. Are you excited or what? Is this your first time at Villa Park?
No, but it's my first time since post-COVID. And I'd been a few times just as a member of the public, but haven't been since we got back to sort of normality. So right. I'm really looking forward to it because, you know, pre-COVID, Villa was a completely different club. But it should be fun. Yeah. Some Coutinho, some Emi Martinez, and some fun at the other end with Rafinha as well. Be a good game.
Yeah, forget Rafinha. It's all about the Villa, baby. I love it. But welcome, Benge. Alison Bender, good to have you on the show. By the way, today is about Chelsea and the State of the Union ahead of the Club World Cup. But also we're looking about the journey that Thomas Tuchel has had in his first full season in charge with the Blues, the sophomore slump, maybe. I don't know. Some may say that. But before we begin, Ali Bender, I was talking to our producer, Des Norris and Benge, about a very funny story, how I was tweeting about Eminem when my name came out, when he first came out. And, you know, I was at uni in London. Nobody knew about him, obviously, not that many people. And I went to a concert. There's like 10 people there. And then Ali Bender messages me saying, you know what, Louise? I think I was there too. You're a huge hip-hop head.
Yeah, I absolutely love hip-hop. And I remember it really well because, like you say, it was like such a small room of people. And I managed to get myself to the front, which wasn't that difficult. And Eminem actually he filled his mouth with vodka and spat it in my face, which sounds pretty gross. But at the time I was so thrilled. I was like, oh my God, I'm not going to ever wash. I'm a massive fan, and just hip hop in general, like 90s hip hop. I used to be a break dancer, believe it or not.
Oh my God,
I've got a really soft spot for hip hop and that kind of era as well.
Ali Bender, that's why you're awesome. I love it so much. Benge, you're a hip hop head too, right? About you have a very deep music genre taste as well, don't you?
Yeah. So I mean, kind of growing more and more passionate and into hip hop. But I mean, probably kind of when I was the age you guys were describing, I was a shy indie kid. Hard to believe now. Shy indie kid, listening to the Long Blondes and bands like that, desperately alternative. I mean, still with the glasses that arguably I don't need, and things like that. But yeah, I mean, Kendrick, Kanye, for me, these guys are maybe not Eminem though. I feel like I missed the moment when he was it, and kind of now he's maybe like a bit heritage rock act sort of thing. So, but yeah,
that's absolutely. Like well, we're talking about 99, 2000, around that time when Eminem first, unbelievable. But you know what though? From Eminem in the 90s to Chelsea in the 90s, and how far they have come since then, Ali Bender. Today is all about the Chelsea. Before we get into it, you did just have an interview with a very special former Chelsea captain.
Yeah, it was awesome. I just spent like half an hour in the company of John Terry, so having spent a decade at Chelsea TV and interviewed him to the point where I was kind of bored of interviewing him, which is a really terrible thing to say, I know, but it got to the fact where you're like, can I just interview someone else? Like, because we say the same old things and whatever. But this felt so special because it's been such a long time, and we were able to kind of take a step back and kind of reflect on it. And it actually got pretty emotional. And at one point during the interview, and this has never happened in my life of interviewing like 1,000+ footballers, he starts welling up. I start welling up.
Wow.
I'm practically crying, and then he's almost crying. And I was just like, whoa, this is big. But we covered some pretty big topics. I was like, listen, John, I don't want any cliches. We've known each other a long time. Let's get straight into it. There's some great stuff in there. My goodness. If you're a Chelsea fan, you've got to be following me on social media, at Ali Bender TV, plug. But some of the lines he came out with, you are going to love them. I'm telling you. Declan Rice at Chelsea. What can I say? There's some exciting stuff coming. I mean, yeah, it's good.
I'm excited. Benge. Yeah, go ahead, Benge.
Yeah, you brought West Ham and Chelsea into the chat there, which, Declan Rice, by the way, what a signing he would be for Chelsea. And it's so funny. You know, I was talking to some people at Stamford Bridge on Saturday, and everyone talks about Declan Rice. And they were saying, you know, look, as Chelsea reporters, the player that Chelsea fans are most interested in, more than half the players at their own club, is Declan Rice. They just dream of having him back.
Every time he comes, the cameras are always panning on him. Do you know what? I think it was a really good thing for him to go away and to be rejected by Chelsea, and to, you know, what he's done at West Ham is just phenomenal. Yeah. And he's just a great player. I love interviewing him because he's fun. Like, you know, you just saw his goal celebration the other day. He doesn't take himself too seriously.
He's going to work on that one though, Ali. He's going to work on that celebration.
You know what? These are the players that perform well, the players that don't have the weight of the world on their shoulders. They are enjoying their football. They play the way they play when they were 6 years old. And him and Mace together, like, we know they're best friends. Like, everyone knows that's no secret. Of course, West Ham are going to want to hold on to him. Of course you would. He's your best player. I get that. But I would love, I mean, I've called in the past Lukaku the missing piece in the puzzle. But actually, I would say scratch that. Declan Rice would be and is hopefully the missing piece in our puzzle.
There's a very funny moment in David Moyes' press conference, was it this morning or yesterday, where someone says to him, "Is Declan Rice £100 million player?" And he just goes, the longest pause ever, and just goes,
saw that. Yeah. So uncomfortable.
He had to think about it. I think he wanted to raise the price. I mean, Declan Rice, of course, would be.
I think he's probably thinking, is he a £200 million player?
Right.
Exactly.
As we're talking West Ham and former Chelsea defenders, we probably do need to address the really horrible, disgusting scenes that we saw on social media from Kurt Zouma. Staggering. And I think it really kind of, I don't know how you guys reacted. I've got two. Well, my mum has two cats that they are the thing that unites our family. It's really horrible to see.
It was so disgusting. And do you know what was most upsetting? So I woke up, I always go straight to social media. It's what I do. And I kept seeing cat throwing, cat kicking trending. And I was just like, oh God, which footballer is messed up now? Or I was like, who is it? Who is it? And I just couldn't believe that it's a footballer I know personally, a footballer I like, I respect, someone who I would always describe as a bit of a gentle giant. I literally, as I spoke to John Terry about it today, and he said, it's so out of character. But not only that, the fact that he thought it was a good idea to upload it himself and laugh about it.
That's what worries me a bit.
It baffles me. And we've got everything going on with Mason Greenwood. We've got so much going on right now. And I just feel like there's not enough people within football clubs and within football actually to take some of these young players and to kind of almost like an in-house club psychologist that they can talk to, that's not the manager, that's not even connected to the club, to educate them. I mean, I know it's obvious, this is how you should just behave in life, but these guys, they are idols and they are respected by everyone, and it can put you in a foul mood because you want to love this player, but how can any fan of West Ham treat him right after that, right?
Yeah, that's a really good point about having somebody in the club that can help these young players with issues that have nothing to do with the game. It's sometimes we forget that, as you mentioned, idols, superstars, they're in their 20s. I'm not excusing what he did. I mean, I already shared it on Twitter. I think cruelty to animals is an absolute disgrace. It's inhumane. I think it tells you a lot about a person's lack of empathy. I think Kurt Zouma needs to answer a lot. It worries me that there was a child witnessing this, the psychological impact that it has on him. I feel that Kurt Zouma, aside from being disciplined and the adequate punishment, he should be working with animal shelters as well to understand just how much look, I'm not a cat, but animal cruelty is the worst thing, and I hate it, and it tells you a lot about a person. And to your point, I think the psychological thing could help them.
The thing that worries me, actually, and I think it's, a lot of people in the UK particularly are really passionate about cats. We are a nation of cat lovers. Yeah. And my worry is that when for example, if he was going to play, emotions are so heightened. I wouldn't be surprised if someone tried to throw something at him on the pitch and put his own life in danger, right? I think that if you were the club right now, you'd be dropping him not because it's the right thing to do, but actually for fear of his safety as well, because people get so angry and they can't help themselves, emotions boil. But what is the correct punishment? Should this player give up his livelihood? Like, should he not play football? I mean, it's hard to know what is the correct punishment for something like this, and we don't really have much experience so far, so it's a really tricky one. It's be interesting to see how West Ham deal with this, right?
Yeah, we will see how this develops as well. Not just Kurt Zouma, but West Ham, of course, and how the situation unfolds as a Premier League returns as well. But moving on, as we mentioned, this is the Chelsea State of the Union. The Premier League does return, but Chelsea are taking care right now of the Club World Cup, which obviously has already kicked off. And on Wednesday, we are taping this before that, on Wednesday, Al Hilal against Chelsea. Before we get into Chelsea's situation in the Club World Cup and what this could mean for them from a global perspective, from Ali's standpoint, James Benge, obviously, you've done a nice little preview as well for us at CBS Sports, a little bit more research on Al Hilal. What can Chelsea expect on Wednesday as they open up Club World Cup?
So, I mean, Al Hilal are an interesting team, an ambitious team, one that's willing to spend to get superstar talent at their club. And we know that there was interest, say, in Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang in January, although they never made the offer. But this is a team with a lot of talented attacking footballers. I think particularly on offense, you know, that there are players here that could test Chelsea and that have tested them before. You know, one of the standout names, Mateus Pereira, who had a fantastic game against them last season in West Bromwich. I know he's not done great so far at Al Hilal. Another one to look out for, Odion Ighalo, who we all know from Manchester United days. He just made his debut in the previous round where they beat Al Jazeera 6-1, the highest score in the Club World Cup. And you kind of have to remember that we do see a lot of matches between minnows and bigger teams, so it's quite impressive that they ran up so many goals. So from their perspective, from Chelsea's perspective, and we've seen them look a bit defensively shaky compared to where they were a year ago, there are players there to worry them. And I know you wouldn't let me finish this point without mentioning Andre Carrillo as well. Real pace and energy down the right flank, I would assume, for Al Hilal, which is
correct, yeah,
where Chelsea may well be a bit vulnerable, whether it's Malang Sarr playing there or Marcos Alonso. They're not as strong and defensively as they were maybe a few months ago, are they, Ali?
No, absolutely not. And you know, when Tuchel first came in, I was just so impressed with how he changed our defense. I spoke about it with John Terry today, and it felt like it was overnight. But things definitely haven't looked so good. I mean, against Plymouth in the FA Cup, we went back to a back four, but I definitely prefer the back three scenario. And I think that's what we'll see sort of going forwards. And the good thing is, I mean, I suppose we've got a lot more of our players back now. I think, you know, Ben Chilwell obviously is the sort of the long-term absentee, but yeah, a lot more of our players kind of can play. I was just taking notes, by the way, on Al Hilal, because it was a team I don't know so much about. So thanks for that. I got all your notes down. But no, I'm looking forward to this one. I mean, it's one of those games, isn't it? It's classic. If we win it, we'll go and talk about it being the best trophy around and how it's all about momentum and how important it is. And if we don't win or don't beat Al Hilal, then we'll just say, well, we've got other things to focus on, so we don't need to worry. So it's a kind of, I feel like we've got nothing to lose in this situation.
In a way, I think so. And I think it should be very important for Tuchel, and I'm sure he does this, he's a smarter man than I am, to not underestimate Al Hilal, because, you know, not only do they have all those players that James Benge was talking about, but that this kind of team in that kind of area in the world is getting better, is getting more accustomed to the professional aspect when you play outside teams from, you know, that region, from the Middle East. So it's going to be a really interesting thing for Chelsea and Thomas Tuchel to do. All right, so let's assess Thomas Tuchel's second season, his first full season. The sophomore seasons are never that easy, especially under Roman Abramovich. Only Jose Mourinho has actually prospered in his second season. So, Ali Bender, let's focus a little bit on the season at hand from a general perspective. I mean, it was quiet in January, despite some injuries, some contract distractions, right? Antonio Rudiger, we don't know yet. Christensen, Azpilicueta. Talk to me about Chelsea so far right now as we begin February.
Yeah, you're right. And it's like, it's all these defenders as well. I mean, that back line's just been so important for us, and our captain. I mean, it's amazing to think that Azpilicueta's been there for so long and he's such an important part of the club, and yet there's all that kind of distraction. I think the Lukaku thing's the one that's upsetting me the most because, you know, I was there at his open training session when he came to Stamford Bridge. I was so excited having seen him at Inter Milan and seeing the player that I thought he was going to be. I was also frustrated having gone to so many Chelsea games and just seeing, you know, Timo Werner, as much as he tries, you know, the number of times he's offside, the number of times he fluffs his lines, just, you know, and even Kai Havertz wasn't gelling. I know he'd had COVID and all the rest of it. So for me, I had put Lukaku on a pedestal. I have to admit, I did think that he was the answer, and it is exactly what we needed. And so the fact, well, there's just so much, isn't there? There was the interview that he did. I was willing to forgive him for that, to be honest with you, because being a journalist myself, I know exactly how it is when you go to another country and they're, oh, you didn't get a chance to say goodbye to the Inter fans. And, you know, you kind of want to sort of put your heart on your sleeve a bit. But the way that he's been playing and that kind of that petulance, that kind of young petulance just seems to kind of, I don't know. And I think that Tuchel has handled things reasonably well because, you know, I always heard that he was a difficult manager, and he seems to be very level-headed. I don't know if you agree, James, but like I certainly haven't seen the hairdryer treatment. Have you so far from Tuchel?
No, in many ways, I found the Lukaku incident quite fascinating in terms of giving us an insight into the influence and the power that Tuchel has that maybe other head coaches haven't. I mean, we always thought of this as a really political dressing room, a dressing room where the players carried all the power. And then with Romelu Lukaku, he is quite swiftly slapped down. And we know that's not just from Thomas Tuchel and that he'd spoken to Marina Granovskaya before anything happened. But it was really clear that it was, you know, the sort of the bad behavior, the angling for a move, it just wasn't tolerated. And I felt he dealt with this remarkably effectively. You know, the one game out, doing his best to cool the conversation around him and then getting him back in the team. The challenge now is, I don't think we're necessarily talking about the interview so much as we're talking about a player who isn't playing well at all.
Yeah, that's where I was going, James. That's where I was going. I wanted to see, because I do agree. I think Tuchel did handle that correctly. But jumping back to you, James, and then Ali chime in. Lukaku, okay, the interview, a careless situation. Let's move on. On the pitch, it's not looking like it's working out, does it, James Benge?
So Chelsea seem to want to play him Chelsea players seem to gravitate towards playing with him as a target man, which he can do. I mean, he did not do it well against Plymouth at all, but you know, if he's going to struggle against anyone, League One centre-backs, they can give him a fight in the air. He is. We've seen him at his best. It's in broken play, running with the ball, drifting out wide and attacking. For whatever reason, Chelsea haven't been able to do that. I think partly it's because they are used to having a lot of possession. They're used to being a team that occupies that, you know, mostly they play in your half of the pitch. So there isn't the space. There aren't the opportunities to break. Equally, you spend £100 million on a 28-year-old. I don't really, you have to be able to adapt. And Lukaku does have the qualities to play as a target man.
Do you think there's a bit of a lack of willingness as well? Because it's like, you know, I can understand how he's not playing well right now, and he must know that something's up. And he's spoken about the fact that we don't play to his strengths and we don't play in his system, what have you. But there also seems to be a lack of effort for me, which, you know, I wouldn't care if, you know, I can see him running his socks off and really trying. But it's almost like, well, if you're not going to play the way that I want you to, then I can't be bothered type of thing. I mean, it feels a little bit like that.
I'm sure you saw at the Plymouth game, arms are in the air a lot. This is what you can do when you're scoring 40 goals a season. You can get angry about the lack of service, but people are crossing the ball into the box, and you know, you're allowing yourself to get into physical aerial duels with centre backs. That's the only way they want to play you. And yeah, Lukaku could be doing more. But you do worry that this just might be a really awkward fit. I don't know. I can't.
There is a thing, and I don't want to create a narrative that maybe doesn't exist, but there is such a thing that maybe Romelu Lukaku came into this thinking that it was going to be easier than expected, just because the success that he rejuvenated himself with Inter Milan, you know, it was such an aggressive system under Antonio Conte. I guess in a way he probably thought, I'm going to go to Chelsea. I'm a different player. I'm back at the Premier League. No problem. And it hasn't happened Yeah, go ahead.
But then have a bit of honesty about it, like Timo Werner. I've seen so many great interviews, and I've done interviews with Werner where he's been so honest. Like he actually said to my colleague the other day, and it breaks your heart. He's like, the Chelsea fans, they support me so well. They seem to love me, and I don't do anything to deserve their love because I'm always messing it up. And like, what? Like, how can you not love a player like that?
That's so hard.
Yeah, and with Fernando Torres, it's the same. Like he was screwing things up, and Chelsea fans were still behind him. And Chelsea fans are willing to back Lukaku if we can see that he's trying or caring. If he was to come out in an interview afterwards and say, "Listen, this is frustrating for me as well, right? I wanted this to be better because at Inter Milan, I was playing 2 up front. It was working really well." Like, do it in a way that endears yourself to the fans. Don't do it in a way that sounds petulant. And I don't know, it's really hard. I don't even know if Tuchel knows what is the answer because we've got so many different options up front. And it's almost impossible to figure out. I mean, I was trying to pick the starting 11. I'd probably go Kai, Werner, Mason Mount as a front three. I don't know. I mean, it's tricky to know, isn't it? But yeah, we don't know our best 11, and that is a worry at this stage of the season.
It's a worry, but I think what's encouraging is the fact that you're in it in every facet of the way, right? The FA Cup as well, the Champions League, of course. So all it takes is that one game to completely change the rhythm and momentum. And with that, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we will talk about that. Chelsea and overall the expectations for the remainder of the season. And of course, a little bit, because this is a US podcast, Christian Pulisic. I would love to know what Ali and James think about Pulisic's situation, because it is kind of split, definitely here in the US. Qué Golazo, Chelsea, State of the Union. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. Qué Golazo, Ali Bender, James Benge, Chelsea, State of the Union. Hey, James, I know that you're not really an NFL fan, are you? Are you going to watch the Super Bowl?
No. Well, I watched it last year because it was on CBS, but I won't watch it this year because it's not.
Well, I'm so glad I'm about to do this plug then. Ali Bender, you watch the Super Bowl? You're into the NFL?
We're great guests, aren't we?
What a great way for me to do this plug with two people. Well, anyway, listen, if you ever were into it, the Pick 6 NFL podcast is your audio destination for the most comprehensive coverage of Super Bowl 56, featuring the Cincinnati Bengals and the LA Rams. Join Will Brinson and company each day as they cover the top storylines, detail the X's and O's, and share betting advice to make you money on Super Bowl Sunday. And of course, they will recap the game right after a new champion is crowned. And by the way, LA Rams, Stan Kroenke, James Benge, there's a connection there, right?
Yeah.
There you go. All right. So download and follow the Pick 6 NFL podcast for the best contest during the biggest week on the football calendar. That's American football calendar. All right. We're back. Qué Golazo, Ali Bender, James Benge, Chelsea State of the Union. We talked Lukaku. We talked Club World Cup. We talked what's been going on with Chelsea so far. Let's get into Christian Pulisic. Okay, because he did get a little bit of a ignited fire in the international window. It did help him to be around his American teammates. Ali Bender, I would love to know, because James has interviewed him. He's covered him extensively for CBS. Let's talk about what you think of Pulisic and his role with Chelsea so far.
Yeah, I mean, I think that he'll be disappointed that he's not playing more of a role, to be honest. And I actually think it's great for him that he's gone off and had a really successful window with his international teammates. And I think he must feel a lot more loved over there as well. It's not that he's not loved here. It's just so much that he's not had the opportunity or the chance to shine in the same way. I mean, he has had a bit of a stop-start time with injuries, obviously. It's never good. But, we all sort of thought that under Thomas Tuchel and, he'd been so good in Germany that I think we did expect a little bit more from him, but I'm not to say that's not to come. I actually still think there's a lot to come, and I think there's going to be a time that we're going to be very excited about Pulisic. He's not done himself any disservice, to be honest with you, in the same way like we're talking about Lukaku, but he just perhaps hasn't shone as much as maybe we were expecting him. I don't know if you agree with that.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But exactly as you say, Alison, there've been moments, and go back to the post-lockdown end of 1920 or whatever that season was, when he was, one of the best players in the league, and if he'd been able to stay fit, Chelsea would have won the FA Cup final. But that's the point, is that he can't quite stay fit, and there always seems to be something that's stopping him from getting that run of games. And it was really interesting. In his press conference before the Plymouth game, Thomas Tuchel was talking about, I'll need to check with the doctor because he's gone from 0 degrees Fahrenheit, was it, Luis, in Minnesota?
It was freezing. I mean, the big argument.
One of the players had hypothermia in that game.
Two of them. Two Honduran players had hypothermia and they couldn't play anymore. I mean, the big argument here was obviously why do that? And Greg Berhalter was saying, well, we have to play in the humid weather of Honduras. And, everybody's like, well, Honduras doesn't have a choice. The entire country is humid, right? You can't, you could play this in LA or whatever. Regardless of that, back to the Pulisic situation in the international window, it was very good for him to be around his teammates. However, he wasn't that great. He was pretty bad against El Salvador, and he wasn't that effective against Canada. He only was good when he came off the bench against Honduras. So that even though maybe it was a good sense of energy for him in the with the national team, I'm worried for Pulisic that he's coming back and his momentum with Chelsea will not pick up itself again. Is he impact sub, James Benge? Is that the best that we can expect of him?
Well, maybe that is the role where we see him.
That's it. Yeah.
That's where he plays well for Chelsea. He is if he wants to make it at Chelsea, realistically, if you think you've got your starting striker, Mason Mount, guaranteed, and then you've got players like Kai Havertz, he has to be a utility man. He has to play right wing back. And I know he does not like doing that at all. But that's the level he's at. He could go to any team just one step down and be a star, be a regular starter who makes really telling contributions. But he is at, and we'll come to talk about this, he's at a team that realistically can aspire to win, not the Premier League this season, but the Premier League in many seasons and win the Champions League. And that means that great players like Pulisic are super subs, are utility
and when you look at his I don't know. Sometimes I think I try and read too much into body language, but I do think it's important. I think you pick up on those things and you do get the feeling that he feels that he deserves more, perhaps, when you see how he's kind of looking. And it's interesting, actually, you say about, overall, perhaps he had a bad international break, but it's funny how the headlines just kind of talk about that goal and everyone's like, all the Chelsea following are like, yeah, Pulisic scored. He's had a great international break. So in a funny kind of way, maybe some of that negativity, although it will affect him personally, it hasn't kind of come back here in quite the same fashion. But yeah, it'll be interesting.
Oh my God, James Benge, what are you calling him? What did you say in your private chat? He's who?
I mean, maybe people here aren't aware of this, but he was referred to in, I believe, an episode of Storage Hunters.
That's true. Yeah.
Pawn Shop or something.
It's kind of like Antique Roadshow kind of like equivalent. And the presenter was trying to sell a frame picture of Christian Pulisic. And the correct description was, James Benge?
He's the LeBron James of soccer.
Wow. Wow.
Oh my God. I love it. I love this intercontinental mishap, especially with Pulisic. All right. Well, listen, we're nearly done here. We wanted to end. I mean, it could be on a good note. I guess optimism is always the best way to go. Just Chelsea and these two guys, their predictions for the remainder of the season. There's Lille next in the Champions League. That's not going to be easy. And Luton next in the FA Cup. That, I don't know, could be easy. And also, of course, trying to maintain a Premier League top 4 spot, because I think Ali Bender, it's Liverpool, Man City for the title, right? There's no way.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's a crazy season. Weird things are happening, like COVID suddenly knocking out half a squad. But when you look at, teams like Manchester City, who've got so much strength and depth, I just don't see. But it's funny how we can still say we're fighting on 4 fronts because of the Club World Cup. So that's kind of nice. It sounds good. I actually think Lille, you say it's not going to be easy. And again, I don't want to say that they're a pushover at all. But I know that we did that draw twice, didn't we? Got Lille twice. And we were definitely delighted with that draw because it could have been a lot harder. So I'm delighted about that. And I also think I did an interview a few weeks back with Tuchel, actually. And he was so brilliant, by the way. There's something else he said that I loved. He said that the first thing he did when he walked into his office is he saw Azpilicueta smiling. And he literally looked at him and went, if you're my captain, we're going to be fine. He just said he had this infectious smile, which I loved. But he was saying how he's got this bit of a kind of superstition now about the Champions League because having won it with Chelsea already. And I don't know. I have a funny feeling that we might do really well in the Champions League.
Well, he knows Lille, right? Obviously from his PSG days as well. So he understands the opposition. Benge, what do you make of them in the Champions League? Maybe not even just Lille, but just could they do it again?
Oh, absolutely, they could. Like, because as Ali was saying, has been that defense. There's been a system that we've seen where Chelsea. Let's not forget, they pretty much swept the Champions League. There was no tie last season where they were really kind of under pressure for a long period. They are absolutely in that clutch of 4, 5, 6 teams that could win it. It needs a bit of luck to break their way. It needs Marcus Alonso to have some really good games at left wing back, but you can put out a team there that can beat anyone in Europe over 2 legs. And that and a cup, I think they'll be pretty fine for top 4. That's still a really good season. I think they started so well and we're in such a good position just a few months ago that we want more teams in the title race. But at the start of the season, no one thought Chelsea were more than dark horses, realistically.
I'm sad we couldn't go a bit further, I have to say. Given the start that we had, I think it's a real wasted opportunity. And I have to say, I do blame, I know every single team have got their problems with COVID, and we had a horrific time with COVID. Yeah. We had a terrible time with injuries. And not only, the fact that when Reece James was injured, everyone else kind of fell apart, because it was, when something is so finely tuned and works so well, like something like that can really put everything else out. And we've really seen it with that defense of Chelsea. So I do feel it's a real shame, but I also think that perhaps we can go, further in, say, the FA Cup. We went all the way and lost to Leicester in the end last season. But who we got next? Luton Town, yeah. And then Lille in the Champions League. So yeah, I still feel it's a positive season.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And remember, all those points were points dropped from draws. They weren't from losses. So it's really just about picking up that offensive mindset. All right, we're going to wrap Chelsea State of the Union with Ali Bender and James Benge. Before we say goodbye, 2 very quick questions. All right, it's the summer. You can have anybody you want, okay? I think I know the answer to this just because of how we began the episode. But who do you want, Ali Bender? Haaland in Chelsea.
I'd even have Aubameyang, to be honest. I'd have it. We just need a decent striker. No, I take that back. I don't want Aubameyang. I want Haaland.
Yeah, come on now. That's a little.
And Declan Rice, obviously, but can I have 2?
Benj, who do you think Chelsea needs in the summer?
I don't know that they necessarily need anyone, but maybe. They'll need some great centre backs. Wesley Fofana, maybe, or Declan Rice. If you could turn him into that centre back, or switch to 3, but. Yeah, go on, Fofana. I really like the idea of them going out and getting him. I think that'd be great.
I like it. And the last question before we say go very, very quickly. Thoughts, Ali Bender, and Frank Lampard now managing Everton. They're facing each other in April. I don't know if things will be tied by then. We don't know. But, it's funny because obviously Villa fan over here, Steven Gerrard, from the most part, Liverpool fans are very happy about it. They kind of like the idea of one of their, legends being a manager. What do you make of it, Lampard?
I love it. Look at my face. I can't stop smiling. Do you know what? I love that gang, he has taken with him a really great team. He's got Ashley Cole with him, who I think a lot of people don't give him the credit he deserves. He's got Joe Edwards, who's been 27 years at Chelsea. He is responsible for all these amazing youth products that you see thriving, right? Paul Clement as well. He was at Paris Saint-Germain and Real Madrid with Ancelotti. He's not a bad manager if Ancelotti wants him as his number 2. So this whole team of individuals, I think they'll do great things at Everton. You saw them already in the FA Cup against Brentford. I expect them to really take them up the table, to be honest, that team.
I like it.
Hard one to read. I hope he's a great success, because I think the Premier League is worse without Everton in it. But maybe this is the moment where I think where Lampard will learn a lot about management. He did amazing work for the long term at Chelsea, but Chelsea aren't a long-term club. Now we get to see what he can do in the short term, and then if he's successful, kind of rebuild Everton. It's such a tough job, though. Such a tough job.
They've got some great players now, though, like Van der Beek and Ali. If he can get the best out of them as well, I just feel like they've never played as a unit, as a team, Everton. And I've already seen that. I had an interview the other day with Alan, and he was just saying that Lampard's only been there 1 week, but it feels like weeks, because he's changed so much already. He's playing 3 at the back, the way that he's kind of implementing his way so quickly. I know it's going to be hard, and Lampard's going to have some tough times, but I do not see Everton going down. You heard it here.
No, I agree with you. But it's always a great thing to take over after a bad season of Rafa Benitez, because every player in that team is just like, just give me somebody that I can talk to. By the way, Football Manager, back when I was at uni, Lampard was a manager, Wayne Rooney was a manager, Gerrard was a manager, and now it's coming to life. It makes me feel really old, Ali Bender, unfortunately.
It does, doesn't it? Do you know, I was thinking that today when I was interviewing John Terry. It's so crazy. I look around the Premier League and these are all the first players that I interviewed,
Crazy.
And it's just, it's nuts. But it's really nice to see them all doing well. I love seeing Steven Gerrard at Villa. I think he's doing a great job. He's a really serious guy as well. Like,
yes, yeah.
I think a lot of people can say they're a soft touch because they're a player. But actually, if you read some of Lampard's rules about, the fines that he imposes when they're late for training and that kind of thing, there's no messing around. And Lampard was one of those players who used to go out onto the pitch doing extra after training sessions, and he will demand that of every single one of those players. And I think they need to show some fight.
Perfectly said, Ali Bender. Thank you so much for being here. By the way, you heard it here first. Ali Bender TV, right, Ali? Is that where we can find you? All
Correct.
over. And by the way, your TikTok channel is crazy. How many followers now?
I'm about 150 something, 150,000. But I got John Terry to do a dance today, and it was so bad. I got him to do the one with the head like that.
Yeah.
And we were all out of time. It was terrible, but I'm going to be posting that later. See if we can go viral.
Unbelievable stuff, Ali Bender. Always a pleasure to have you on our very own James Benge. James, you don't have a TikTok, do you?
God, no. No one would want me to see my TikTok. Managing my passive-aggressive Twitter is too much work for me.
Yeah, that is true. James,
what are you on Twitter, James? I want to follow you.
At James Benge.
Easy enough. Great.
Easy enough. At James Benge, our correspondent here at CBS Sports. Make sure to follow all his content. And Ali Bender TV, always a pleasure to have you. Ali, let's put on some Eminem after this. Thank you so much for being here. Ali, thank you so much.
I'll go and spin on my head. Cheers.
James Benge, I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Make sure to follow Qué Golazo pod on Twitter, youtube.com/Qué Golazo. We're almost to 10,000 subscribers on YouTube. Thank you so much. And of course, anywhere you listen to your pods. We'll see you next time. Have a great, great day.